Hello and welcome to your English news broadcast live on ERi-TV. It's exactly 10:30 p.m. on Eritrea's local time from our headquarters at Asmara with your domestic and international news in brief. I'm Zahra Badouri, but first we'll begin with your major headlines for this broadcast. Commendable effort to empower women on your primary domestic. Awards to outstanding students and teachers, and more on your domestic. On your international, authorities in Mexico City collect domestic guns in effort to disarm citizens. Civilians in peril as tensions in Democratic Republic of Congo escalate, the HRW, and more. Welcome to your domestic in brief. The National Union of Eritrean Women branch in the Central Region reported that commendable effort is being exerted to develop the socio-economic capacity as well as vocational skill of women in the region. Mrs. Haragu Gabrameskal, head of the legal services at the Union branch, said that alongside the effort being conducted to develop the overall awareness of women, training programs as well as loan opportunities are being provided to disadvantaged women, indicating that over 40 million nakfa has been dispersed to 14,000 women across the country, and out of which 1/4 of them from the Central Region. Mrs. Haragu said that the beneficiaries are engaged in agricultural, small-scale trade, and other activities. Mrs. Haragu went on to say that the Union branch has organized vocational training programs to disadvantaged women in 16 subzones on weaving, beauty salon, bee farming, as well as ceramics and others. The Union branch has also exerted strong effort in raising the awareness of women on the negative effects of harmful practices, including underage marriages and FGM, in the overall development of women. The La Salle Elementary and Junior School in Karan awarded outstanding students that scored higher points in the 2020-2021 8th grade national examination, and outstanding teachers that contributed in the development of teaching and learning process. The awareness included 24 students that scored 90 points and above, as well as teachers that contributed in the development of cultural and sports activities within the schools, pointing out that the development of teaching and learning process could be achieved through the involvement of many sectors and actors. Mr. Haptom Haile, director of the school, said that the teachers in the schools have been the main factor for the success that has been achieved, indicating that teachers have significant role in ensuring the development of teaching and learning process. Mr. Kufla Andemikael, head of the Ministry of Education in the Ansaba region, called for the sustainability of the initiative to encourage outstanding students and teachers. On your final domestic, as part of the effort being conducted to empower women, the National Confederation of Eritrean Workers organized 4-month vocational training to 20 women in La'alai-Gash subzone on tailoring and cloth design. Mrs. Ilana Felice, coordinator of the program, said that the objective of the training program was to develop the vocational capacity of women and to enable them improve their livelihoods through creating income-generating schemes, indicating that a similar training program has been organized in Barantu subzone. Mr. Abdul Saleh, head of the National Confederation of Eritrean Workers branch in Gashbarka region, said that the objective of the training program was to develop the overall capacity of women. Commanding for the training opportunity they have been provided, representative of the trainees expressed readiness to apply the training they were provided practically on the ground and improve their livelihoods. Dear viewers, we'll be back with your international news after this short break. Stay with us for more. And on your global reports, Mexico City residents handed over their guns on Friday, June the 3rd, as part of an anti-violence violence in government programs aimed at disarming citizens and thus curb violence rate. Since the Yes to Disarmament, Yes to Peace program began back in 2019, authorities have collected around 6,320 domestic guns in the Mexican capital alone. The program also targeted children to enhance an upbringing free of weapon-like toys. However, footage showed minors swiping their toy guns for others, non-violent ones. It is important to be educated against violence. However, children hand over their toy guns and adults handed over guns that they have at home. Mexico City Government Secretary Martí Bateras told Reuters as a report. The campaign in Mexico, however, is running while the U.S. is once again debating on gun control after several mass shootings in recent weeks have shaken the neighboring country. Bateras also said in a report that U.S. should reflect on their right to possess weapon at home and prompt a cultural change to move away from the daily use of guns and harmful practices. Proceeding with your international reports, fighting between government forces and armed groups in the conflict-torn North Kivu province of the Democratic Republic of Congo could seriously endanger the safety of civilians in that area, Human Rights Watch reported. In a statement late on Wednesday, the rights group called on the DRC's security forces and the M23 armed group to minimize harm to civilians during renewed fighting and avoid a repetition of the widespread abuse during past fights between government forces and the rebels. However, Thomas Facey, senior DRC researcher at Human Rights Watch, said in a statement late on Wednesday that the M23 armed group was responsible for countless atrocities in the past, and the renowned fighting in North Kivu raises grave concern about the danger to civilians in that area. Violence in northern Kivu resumed on May 22, forcing tens of thousands of people to flee their homes in the late episode of what the Norwegian Refugee Council has called the world's most negligent displacement crisis. The government of Rwanda and the DRC have exchanged accusations about the fighting, with Kigali saying that the Congolese armed fired rockets into its territory, in quotation, injuring several civilians and damaging property. Kinshasa alleged that the Rwandan Defense Force was actively fighting alongside the M23. The M23, however, on March 23 movement originally consisted of soldiers who participated in a mutiny from the DRC National Army in April and May 2012. It briefly captured Goma before United Nations-backed government troops in the year 2013 forced it back into Rwanda and Uganda. The M23 fighters summarily executed dozens of civilians, raped scores of women and girls, and forcibly recruited hundreds of men and boys, becoming among the worst perpetrators of human rights abuse in the DRC or even in the world, according to the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Navy Pallery report. The group resurfaced in November, attacking the DRC's army after accusing President Felix of not upholding existing peace agreements, including amnesties for its members. Tensions escalated in the late April as Kenya held a first round of talks between the DRC and the number of armed group in Nairobi. In quotation, any new rounds of talks should address, with assistance from the African Union and the UN, the demobilization prosecution of the armed groups and accountability for the past serious crimes, as reports came from the Human Rights Watch. The watchdog has also raised an alarm on the rise in hate speeches and stigmatization of communities linked to the DRC's neighboring countries, which has been growing and sometimes linked to the government officials, as reported by the Human Rights. It was also unaware of any disciplinary actions taken against Van Ang. Continuing with the last report on your international, the Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett has told the United Nations nuclear watchdog that his country would prefer a diplomatic resolution to stand off over Iran's nuclear program, but could take independent action, retreating a long-standing valid threat to launch a primitive war. The warning to visiting International Atomic Energy Agency Chief Rafael Grossi followed calls by Western power on the IAEA Board of Governors to rebuke Tehran for failing to answer questions on uranium traces at denuclearized sites. The dispute has further clouded so far fruitless attempts by negotiators to reskirt a 2015 Iranian nuclear deal that formed United States President Donald Trump to quit in 2018. Since Washington walked out, Iran, which says its nuclear design are peaceful, has stepped up uranium enrichment, a process that could produce fuel for bombs. Bennett, however, in quotation stressed that the importance of the IAEA Board of Governors delivering a clear and unequivocal message to Iran in its upcoming decision. A statement from Bennett's office reported that, in quotation, while it prefers diplomacy in order to deny Iran the possibility of developing nuclear weapons, Israel reserves the right to self-defense and actions against Iran to stop its nuclear program if the international community fails to do so within the relevant time frame, it added, without elaborating. However, there was no immediate comment from Garcey's office. On Thursday, however, Iran's chief nuclear negotiator, Ali Bagheri Khan, told Norway's NRK that Israel, in quotation, can only attack Iran in its dreams, and if they do have such a dream, they will never wake up from it. Iran stated run IRNA news agency quoted Bagheri, who was on an official visit to Norway, as saying Iran blames Israel for a long-running assassination campaign targeting military figures and scientists involved in Tehran's nuclear program. Dear viewers, that is all for now with your reports for this broadcast. Until we are back with some more news, stay and enjoy the rest of our programs. But until then, these are your recap of your major headlines for this broadcast. Commendable effort to empower women as your primary domestic. Awards to outstanding students and teachers, and vocational training to women as your final domestic. Authorities in Mexico City collect domestic guns in effort to disarm citizens and decrease violence. Civilians in peril as tensions in the DR Congo escalate, and Israeli threatens Iran with military actions as nuclear talks between Iran and US took no closer. That is all for now. Thanks for watching and have a nice one.